Okay, so David, thank you for being here with us on Flight TV to talk about flight safety and your organization. So what's happening in the pilot training world these days with safety and that?
Well, as you know, there's a great rush to go to the airlines. Everybody's acquiring certificates in a really rapid fashion. And so far, safety doesn't seem to be impacted, but I have a feeling down the road things are really going to have an effect, because we have people getting a private pilot certificate in 3 weeks.
Okay.
We all know that you can't make neurological imprints in 3 weeks, no solid habits. So how can this, down the road become a safe pilot? And then they're getting their advanced ratings in a very perfunctory and quick manner. Frequently what I see as a pilot examiner is that people go to the next rating, they overwrite what they got in the first rating.
Yeah.
So they get their IFR and all the VFR information goes away. They get to commercial and the IFR goes away. They get to the end of the course of training and they're a mess. And quite frankly, they may have only been flying for 4 or 5 months and they're a flight instructor.
Yeah.
And that's where SAFE is really involved, because a flight instructor is in charge of the next generation of pilots, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's the scary part. They may have 10 hours of solo, they may have only been a pilot for 4 months, and they're teaching your kids to fly.
Yeah, which is dangerous.
Not a safe, and like I said, it's still down the road. We're not seeing, I don't think, the real implications of those changes. We're only into that 2 years since COVID,
Yeah, and now, of course, since COVID, we've seen a lot of entrepreneurs looking at the schedules of the airlines, which have kind of reduced. And so they say, well, you know what, I think I'm going to learn to fly and buy my own Cirrus or PC-12 or whatever, and or Honda Jet, and off they go. And we're seeing the safety record in private aviation 9.2 times worse than the airlines.
Right.
And a lot of these people that are crashing are flying single pilot operations. They're not professional pilots. So what can you tell us about that?
Well, I kind of have intimate knowledge of that because I fly a small jet,
Yep.
and I fly it as a mentor pilot for a billionaire in the other seat. He happens to be pretty good at it, but that's not the case. When I was recently at Recurrent training in a training center, the FAA came through and they took 3 certificates from single pilot jet pilots because the training, as they saw it, was not satisfactory, didn't meet the standards, and safety was going to be compromised. So the FAA's on that issue, but they can't be everywhere. What I see really is it's a matter of standards. If there's a standard they have to meet, we have to assure they have that. And then, of course, the experience, because a lot of these people are not professional pilots. They got a private and instrument, and they are qualified technically, but as we know, it takes experience to be safe. You can buy flight training, but you can't buy experience.
Yeah.
That comes with hours and years.
Yeah.
And they want it now
Yeah.
because that's our culture, right?
Yeah.
So you're quite right. The safety record is bad now. Both you and me think, okay, down the road, where's this going? And that's why we're in the safety business.
Yeah. So going back to, so obviously these entrepreneurs that are becoming pilots are going through this system where in 5 months they're qualified,
Right.
off they go. So what can we do to change the system?
And we're talking about the trainees, not the single pilot jet pilots.
Well, they are affected as well.
Oh, yeah. Well,
they're going through the same system the young guys are going through to
Absolutely.
become professional pilots with the airlines. They're having a similar issue.
yeah, the whole system has got into a rush. It's got in low experience. What SAFE does is we try to intervene at the level of the flight instructor.
Yeah.
Because the new flight instructor, I think it's 2/3 of all flight instructors have flown, taught for less than a year.
Yeah.
They may have only been in a plane for 8 months, and they're a flight instructor with 10 hours of solo.
Yeah.
How can they convey experience? How can they convey wisdom?
Yes.
So we have a copy of a copy of a copy with a degrading quality, just like
Yeah.
So we go in for the new CFIs, and we have a program called CFI Pro, and we go to the flight schools, the academies, and we offer it at cost, and we give them an additional day of training. We try to get a full day. Sometimes it's 2 hours, 4 hours. But there's a program they had in the FAA FSDO district, and in one day of additional training, reduced accidents by 60%. 1 day of additional training, reduced accidents by, that's amazing. I mean, an intervention like that is hugely successful. So SAFE basically took that program, we expanded it a little, and we offer it free to flight schools. I should say at cost, because we have to pay our instructors to come in. But what we get is the new CFIs sitting in the classroom. I thought we'd get a lot of pushback, but they're actually energized, and they say thank you for this. They want that training. They're scared to death. They've been put in the seat and said, you are now a flight instructor, in charge of this, and they're scared to death. So what a wonderful situation. But it's getting the word out, and expanding that program. We want to offer it at 10 locations next year all around the U.S. because we have to bring it to them. The first one we offered was at AOPA, and we said, okay, we're going to have a CFI Pro. We're going to charge $240. We got the most experienced CFIs in the whole country showed up. We were preaching to the choir. We had DPEs, we had senior master instructors, and it's like, that's not who we want. So we retooled it, and we said, we're going to them. And we can get some footage for you of that, but basically in the classroom, sitting with their little 3 stripes, yep, and they were excited. They were asking questions. So not only is it necessary, it's really desirable for these people. They know they don't have enough.
You've been an instructor for many years, and as an examiner, what are you finding today different to 15, 20 years ago with the type of people that are going through training and how they approach it?
Well, you are finding less skill, a lower level. In other words, the practical test standards, the ACS, is the minimum standard to get a certificate. 2 people, one got a 70, one got a 99. They're both pilots. It's like the doctor who's last in medical school. He's still a doctor. Thank you very much. But I don't want him operating on me, right? Anyway, so they're closer to that 70%. The knowledge test, 72%. Lots of things wrong. But for me, the scariest thing is, and you're a pilot, we know this, lack of command authority. They are still dependent on their flight instructor. When they come with me as an examiner, they're looking to me for guidance. They're not in command of the ship. And so how are they going to successfully get into an airliner or a corporate plane and be in charge? We talk about single piloting. They're not qualified for that. And a lot of these, I hate to bang on young people, but a lot of the people who went through an accelerated course who get into the right seat of a wide body, they're only qualified to be a co-pilot. They do not have the command authority to probably even pilot a Cessna successfully very far. So scary stuff. So what I'm seeing really is a lack of skill. And the ACS PTS is a minimum standard, and they're just meeting the minimums now. We used to have people in the 80s, 90s, and as an examiner, it's frustrating because they're just barely qualified. It's what we call a gray, and we just don't know which side of the line the body's going to fall on. But they will be at the end of it a pilot. Whether they got a 70 or a 90, they're a pilot. But that's probably not the scariest thing. The thing I see a lot of is a lack of command authority. They're not in charge of the plane. And that indicates to me their instructor's not doing the job correctly because they're creating dependency. If you want to be a successful educator, you have to create independence and in charge and PIC authority. And we know that is critical. So a lot of these people are getting into airliners. They're getting out of a 172. And they're theoretically in charge, they're in the right seat, and what we're hearing from airline captains is they're more of a hindrance than a help. And if a person like that is getting into a single pilot jet, they're obviously not qualified to command that ship. It's going twice as fast as their previous plane, and they're not thinking twice as fast, so big problems ahead.
What about upset recovery training? We're noticing quite a few accidents recently. And even in the training for private pilot's license, spin training isn't required. I mean, when I was doing my private pilot's license, I was struggling to go solo because I was scared of getting into a spin and not knowing how to get out of it. And I was talking to another student about this, and he said, oh, tell your instructor to take you out for spin training. So off we went, did the lesson of spin training, went into spin, got out of spin. Next day I went solo. And then it dawned on me, and I thought, this should be mandatory. But it isn't. So then I went through an aerobatics course while I was doing my commercial pilot's license because I just thought I needed that.
And it would be great if everybody at the instructor level even had upset prevention and recovery, UPRT. And we're big advocates of that. I went to Patty Wagstaff School and did that. And I've flown for 50 years. I've been an instructor for 30. In 1 hour of training, I learned 5 major things I thought were significant takeaways. So everyone can benefit from that. But the safety benefit of that, if an instructor is trained that way, there's the confidence, there's the safety of handling the controls, but also what they can convey as an educator.
Yeah.
Loss of control in flight, #1 killer. You look at the statistics and it's, loss of control, huge.
Yeah.
And everybody needs more of that. And I think, again, it goes back to confidence. When a pilot flies and they're scared and they're timid, they're flying in a very small flight envelope. If they get displaced from that comfort zone, they're going to lose control, because what happens is startle. Startle is a neurological phenomena that the brain shuts down. We go into fight or flight. Frequently, they'll lock up on the controls. And is the instructor ready for that situation to lock up? So, what we have to have is more exposure to those edges of the envelope, comfort, and they'll know what to do. They'll respond correctly. We know as pilots, it's an automatic, has to be deeply embedded.
Yeah.
Unload, roll level, and so yes, UPRT would be wonderful. We're advocating it at the instructor level.
Yeah, what about the simulators? Today, flight simulation has come a long way over the last 20 years. And now we've got these VR headsets you can put on.
Right.
And that. Because my son is looking to learn to fly, I said, well, we're going to teach you in a flight simulator first, with
Sure.
a Redbird simulator, learn all the maneuvers for about 10 hours, and then we'll go flying.
Yep.
And then you'll replicate what you did in the simulator up in the air. How do you think that can change and improve flight training?
Well, it's like most things that we encounter. There's good uses of flight simulators and there's bad uses.
Okay.
We have a member, Mike McCurdy, and he has a school in North Carolina, and he starts everybody in the flight simulator.
Yeah.
They do everything because it's a very low stress situation. It's not fearful. They get the procedures down, they run the checklist. Once they master it in the simulator, they go into the plane. That works huge.
Yes.
The unfortunate thing is our young CFIs aren't logging hours when they're flying simulators. So they're very reluctant to teach in a simulator. They want to be in a plane and gain those 1,500 hours to get
We need the retired airline guys to come in and teach the young
Correct.
ones.
There you go. Guys that are...
Yeah. Guys like me, you and I, to go
No,
and teach
and
these people.
SAFE has targeted those people. And here at the show, we've had a couple people come by, say, I'm a retired airline pilot. They want to get their CFI recurrent. And it's almost ironic. They think they're not qualified because they haven't been in the game for a long time. And I say, you as an airline pilot compared to a young CFI with 10 hours of solo, who's qualified?
Yeah.
We need you in the industry.
Yes.
Please go back, and
Yeah.
teach. And yes, I wish there were more of them getting out there. In the simulator, just to get back to that, I think at every level, simulators can be used very effectively.
Oh, yes.
The key is that word fidelity. How much does it resemble the actual situation? VR is huge.
Yes.
And you just look at the Air Force and how much they're using simulation. These young cadets in the Air Force are skipping airframes now because they're so qualified, they're moving over to the next one and the next one. It's been hugely effective. So yeah, simulators is a great way to go. But I gotta say, for UPRT, you almost have to be out there and doing it, because what you're coping with is the fright factor.
Yeah.
And you have to really...
And the physical sort of pressure of the G-force.
Right, the G-forces, yeah. So a lot of good training, but it has to be executed in final form eventually.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course,
So
what about insurance? Because obviously, going back to the entrepreneur guy that decides to learn to fly, and now he buys his Honda jet.
Yep.
A lot of these people are having serious insurance problems because the insurance company is saying, well, Mr. $400 million, you crash your airplane, we're only going to give your family $2 million.
Right.
Because you're a liability, you're not an asset.
And the guy I fly with, he's not allowed to fly solo because his net worth is so high, they can't insure that risk. He has to fly forever with somebody in the other because of the safety factor. 7 times more dangerous to go single pilot than dual. So the insurance companies really do run the game. My recent training, when I got recurrent in the jet, I was with the other candidate who works for an insurance company.
Okay, yeah.
He said, I'm getting my single pilot rating. Our company does not allow us to fly single pilot.
And they're an insurance company.
They're an insurance company, and they have 5 of the jets, and believe me, those jets are just minor money compared to what they make in a year.
Yeah.
But it's just a safety issue. And yeah, I don't know how you skate around that issue and say it doesn't exist, because we know the statistics. They're there. And the insurance companies, to me, that's kind of an abuse because now they are the ones who are running the industry. It's
Well, you
not
know what you need? I think
FAA and regulations.
In Europe, we have a thing called a multi-crew coordination course.
Right.
So what happens is, once you get your commercial pilot's license and you want to go and fly a jet, you have
Right.
to go through this course first. And it's ground
Right.
school, and it's 32 hours in an Airbus 320 or 737 simulator. So you learn jet orientation, and
Right.
you learn how to work as a crew, and you learn decision making. And only once you finish that course are you allowed to go and get a
Qualified.
Honda jet rating, whether you're going to fly single pilot or dual pilot.
And that's even at the Honda jet level.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Wow.
Any type rating, you have to have an MCC certificate.
Well,
I think
see-
that needs to be introduced here in America.
Oh, God,
That
yes.
would help.
Well, you know why everyone comes to the U.S. to do their certificates, right? The regs. If you become a CFI here, you're immediately out in the wild teaching. In Canada, if you become a CFI, you're a class 4 and you have to teach under supervision
Yes.
of another. If somebody's going to get their ATP, they have to go to a CPT course and fly a simulator kind of,
Yeah.
but 2 days.
I know.
2 days and no standard for graduation. So that is very valuable. I don't think the FAA will buy it because, you know, they really have their
Well, maybe the
standards.
FAA don't need to buy it, but if the
Insurance companies,
exactly.
yes.
If I go to an insurance company and I say, I'm buying a Honda jet, but before that I'm going to go, and it's not in a full motion simulator, it's a fixed
Right.
space simulator, which doesn't cost as much, but you're learning all the procedures, you're learning how to make decisions, you're learning how to fly a jet.
You're doing the
learn-
scenarios.
Yeah,
Yep.
and you're doing it, you know, a lot of it is loft, line-oriented flight training as well. So there's all that built into this, and I think that would probably help. And the insurance company will probably come on board a lot quicker than the FAA. And probably
Yes.
a few years later, the FAA will catch on to it.
They probably would. I'll just mention something since you do this channel and there's a thing called the Pilot Proficiency Center. It's up part of Oshkosh, $13 million brick and mortar. And they have 12 or 13 simulators there, and they do a voluntary program. There's one in April here where they're, you know, and then they run it at Oshkosh too. And basically scenarios you can work your way through. And they have the decision tree. You know, here you fail and die, but you don't die in a simulator, but very good training, but totally voluntary, not mandatory.
Yeah.
But we find a lot of really excellent pilots, you know, are driven to excel, and they take that course. Very, very valuable. Again, will it ever be mandatory? I doubt it, but
Yeah, but this
again,
is the thing, and I think if you are a pilot or you're thinking of becoming a pilot, don't look at the mandatory stuff.
exceed the
Look at
minimums.
yeah, I mean, it's like you buy an NBA team,
Yep.
you want them to win.
Yep,
So even if you've got the best players, you want to train them so they stay the best players.
correct.
So flying, if you're just going through the bare minimum to get your certificate, you're not peak performing. And you're getting in an airplane, you're up at whatever altitude you're flying at, you need to be safe. If something goes wrong, you know, you could crash that plane into a building or whatever. and kill
There's a
them.
huge significance here. It's
Yeah.
not like replay, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I always say game over, no replay in aviation.
yeah,
You know,
exactly.
it's very high consequence. And, you know, I think if we make that more apparent and real to people,
Yes.
we go to fly to have adventure and challenge. We don't go to fly to end up in a hospital bed with tubes.
Yeah.
And so the consequences have to be, but all of us humans normalize experience.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I flew to Bermuda in the jet.
Yeah.
45,000 feet, terrified. Second time, comfortable. Third time, you know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying
Yeah,
is
yeah.
we normalize all experiences, and to be safe, we have to always make it the first time. That's why I go back to that beginner's mind with Micah Mile Charles.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's very important to just really say, like you did, we're mentioning before the program, you know, think of what all the consequences are of this operation. But it's a psychological, you know, requirement. We know that feeds into safety.
Yeah.
Bad things could happen. Let's be ready. Let's be vigilant. So, yeah.
Super.
I think we've covered all the bases.
Yes.
Thank you so much for
Thank you
coming
very
in
much.
interview.
It's
Really
been great.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah.